You didn't buy a Harley to ride something that feels held back, sluggish, and hotter than it should be. But what if the power loss you're feeling isn't age, bad gas, or wear at all? What if your bike has been restricted since the moment it left the factory? There's a hidden performance issue built into thousands of Harleys that affects throttle response, engine heat, and real-world acceleration. And most riders don't even know it's happening. You're not imagining the lag, and you're not riding wrong. Stay with me until the end, because the fix is real, and the difference will shock you. When the throttle lies, you roll on the throttle, expecting that classic Harley surge, that deep, chest-thumping pull that once made you grin every single time. But now, it feels different. The sound is still there, the chrome still shines, yet the response feels soft, lazy, almost disconnected. It is like your Harley suddenly aged 10 years overnight. You can blame the weather, bad gas, or the clutch, but deep down, you know something's off. And it is your engine quietly choking itself. The fuel mix is wrong, the computer thinks it is helping, but it is starving your cylinders, just enough to dull every punch of power. This is the problem most Harley owners never realize they have. You might think your bike just settled in with miles, but what is really happening is invisible sabotage right under your tank. Every twist of the throttle feels a little more numb because your engine's map is fighting against you, not for you. And here is the scary truth. Nearly every modern Harley leaves the factory this way. Not broken, just limited. That drop you feel. It is not age. It is not worn. It is the sound of performance being quietly stolen from your ride, the ghost in the throttle. Hidden inside every Harley's brain is a digital leash, a fuel map written by lawyers, not riders. It decides exactly how much air and fuel your engine gets at every RPM. When that map is off, even slightly, your bike feels half asleep. You twist, it hesitates. You shift, it lags. You open the throttle, but it feels like someone's got a hand on your back, holding you still. Here is the kicker. That leash is built in on purpose. Harley's factory tunes run lean to meet strict emission rules. On paper, they pass inspection. On the road, they run hot and weak. And when you bolt on new pipes or a high-flow filter, that careful balance gets even worse. The sensors panic, the computer trims fuel, and suddenly your V-twin starts cooking itself from the inside out. You are not losing horsepower from age. You are losing it from neglect disguised as compliance. The throttle lag, the heat between your legs, that sluggish roll-on, they are symptoms of a system tuned to survive regulations, not serve riders. And once you understand that, everything about how your Harley feels starts to make sense. Because the problem killing your performance is not mechanical at all, it is digital. And it is hiding in plain sight. If your Harley's losing its bite, trust me, you're not the only one feeling it. We dig into the truth they don't put in the brochures. If you're here for honesty, not hype, smash like, subscribe, and comment what you're riding and what issues you've hit. Let's talk real precision or nothing. Modern Harley engines live and die by precision. The air-fuel ratio that once could be tweaked with a screwdriver now depends on sensors, algorithms, and factory code. Back in the carburetor days, a mechanic could tune by ear, listen to the idle, smell the exhaust, feel the vibration through the tank. You could tell when it was running rich or lean without plugging in a laptop. But today's engines demand numbers, not instincts. 1 decimal point off in the fuel map, and you lose that perfect rhythm between piston and spark. It is not that the machines got worse, they just got smarter. And with that intelligence came fragility. The same systems that make modern bikes efficient also make them unforgiving. A slightly off sensor reading, a clogged injector, or even a different brand of fuel can cause a small miscalculation that grows over time. That miscalculation turns torque into hesitation, heat into strain, and smooth cruising into sluggish response. You can almost feel the computer second-guessing itself. It wants to give you full power, but the numbers tell it to hold back. The result is a ride that feels caged, like a strong horse reined too tight. This is why so many riders swear their bikes run better after a proper tune. They are not imagining it, they are setting the horse free. When a machine this proud starts fighting itself, you have got more than a comfort problem. Before we dig deeper, gear up right. Everything that keeps my rides sharp is waiting in the description. The price of neglect. A bad fuel map does not explode your engine overnight. It kills performance by inches. First, the throttle feels lazy, then the fuel mileage drops. The motor runs a few degrees hotter, burning oil a little faster than it should. Over time, the exhaust darkens, the plugs foul, and the idle becomes unpredictable. The engine starts to sound harsher, the gear changes feel heavier, and the miles per gallon fall into the basement. That slow decay eats more than performance. It eats trust. You start thinking the bike has lost its touch, when in fact it is just running blind. The longer it runs lean, the more damage builds up inside. Valves run hot, pistons wear unevenly, and bearings lose the cushion of proper lubrication. It is the quiet kind of wear that does not show until the warranty is long gone. And then comes the real cost. A remap might run a few $100s at a good shop. A top-end rebuild will cost a few thousand. That is why ignoring a lazy map is like skipping oil changes. You might save money this month, but you will pay double next year. Every veteran rider knows that engines talk. They just do it in their own language. When yours starts whispering instead of roaring, it is time to listen, because the dyno sheets do not lie. And we have seen them. Dyno truth. Walk into any honest tuning shop, and the truth stares back at you from the dyno screen, line after line of torque curves, each one telling a story about power lost and power found. A stock Harley that should be pushing solid, confident numbers often falls short by 5 to 7 horsepower. To the untrained eye, that may sound minor, but to a seasoned rider, that is the difference between a bike that feels alive and one that feels winded halfway through the gear. You can hear it, feel it, even smell it when a machine runs lean. On the dyno, those small drops become undeniable proof. The air-fuel ratio lines wobble when they should hold steady, showing spikes of lean burn under throttle. The engine's heartbeat becomes irregular, forced to work harder than it should for every ounce of torque. Once the technician loads a proper tune, the change is immediate. The line smooths out, the heat drops, and the horsepower returns like a familiar friend. What riders describe as throttle lag or mid-range stumble suddenly vanishes. It is not magic, it is mathematics written in combustion. For anyone still doubting, dyno results cut through argument like a wrench through soft gasket. These numbers do not care about marketing promises or dealer excuses. They show what the bike is truly capable of when tuned for balance instead of bureaucracy. But the dyno only tells half the story. The real talk happens in the back rooms of tuning shops. What tuners whisper off the record. In the back corner of every Harley shop, there is always one veteran tuner who has seen it all. He keeps his tools in an old box, his hands scarred from years of adjusting jets and valves long before laptops ruled the garage. Ask him off the record, and he will tell you what few dealers dare admit. Most factory maps are written for emissions first, performance second. They run lean to satisfy regulations, not riders. The computer's main goal is compliance, not combustion harmony. These tuners speak carefully, knowing the politics behind every fuel map. They have seen brand new bikes arrive from the factory with mixture so lean they cook the exhaust pipes blue before the first oil change. They have fixed bikes that ping under load, rattle under heat, and stall at idle, all while the ECU insists everything is within range. What frustrates them most is how many riders try to fix these issues by downloading a one-size-fits-all map from the internet. Those files, they say, are like borrowing someone else's prescription glasses. They might fit close enough to see, but you will always strain your eyes. These mechanics do not blame riders for chasing cheap solutions. They know people just want their bikes to run right. But they shake their heads at how many good engines get shortened lives by poor tuning or ignored calibration. The truth is, the best maps are earned with patience, precision, and a few hours on a proper dyno, not a flash file sold by an online stranger. They are not blaming the riders. They are warning them. The slow fade. If bad mapping caused engines to fail overnight, everyone would fix it immediately. But this problem works slower than rust, eating performance a fraction at a time. It starts with sensors drifting. The oxygen sensors that once read perfectly now send slightly off signals. Ethanol in modern fuel adds moisture and unpredictability, thinning the mix and changing how combustion reacts under load. Altitude changes, seasonal temperatures, and varying gas blends all play their part, nudging the ratio further from ideal. Each small shift means the computer makes tiny corrections, believing it is helping, when in truth, it is chasing ghosts. Over months and years, those small corrections stack up. A Harley that once ran perfectly at sea level begins to struggle on mountain rides. A bike that idled smooth in summer suddenly coughs in winter. Riders adapt, assuming the machine is just getting older. They compensate with throttle, with habit, and eventually stop noticing the difference. It is the boiling frog effect, a gradual decay so slow you do not realize how much performance you have lost until you ride a freshly tuned bike and feel the world rush back. Every veteran mechanic has seen it. 2 bikes, same year, same miles, one mapped right and one neglected. The tuned bike feels new, crisp, ready to pull. The neglected one feels sluggish and heavy, even though both engines are technically healthy. That is the silent tax of running lean too long. That is why even bikes that never left stock eventually fall out of tune. Worth every penny. A professional tune is not a luxury, it is maintenance, disguised as magic. Riders often hesitate at the cost of a dyno session, thinking of it as an optional upgrade. But compare that to what poor mapping costs over time. A proper remap from a trusted shop may run around a few $100s, depending on the setup. A top-end rebuild, once heat and lean wear take their toll, can climb well into the thousands. The math is as plain as an oil stain on concrete. A well-tuned Harley runs cooler, smoother, and stronger. Fuel mileage improves. Throttle response sharpens. And the engine's tone deepens into that old familiar growl that made you fall in love with riding in the first place. More importantly, a good tune protects your investment. It keeps the valves seated right, the pistons cool, and the bearings happy. It is the invisible armor that lets you keep trusting your machine mile after mile. Talk to riders who have done it, and they will all tell you the same thing. The first time you roll on after a proper tune, you feel the difference in your bones. The power is not just back, it is better distributed, cleaner, more controlled. You are not forcing the bike to work, you are letting it breathe. That is not an upgrade, that is respect. Respect for the craftsmanship, for the legacy, and for every mile ahead. But this is not just about mechanics. It is about the people riding them. When pride turns to doubt. For years, one veteran rider swore by his Harley. He had bought it brand new, ridden it across states, and treated it like a member of the family. Somewhere past 60,000 miles, he began to feel something change. The throttle grew lazy, the pull softened, and the bike that once felt like a freight train now behaved more like an old pickup. He chalked it up to age, both his and the bike's. Engines just get tired, he said. That belief stayed firm until a friend convinced him to put it on a dyno. What the numbers showed surprised him. The bike was not tired, it was strangled. The fuel map had drifted lean over the years, robbing it of torque and dumping unnecessary heat into the engine. A proper tune later, the same machine pulled harder than it had in a decade. It idled smoother, shifted cleaner, and sounded alive again. When he rolled out of the shop, the pride came flooding back. That deep, satisfied grin only a perfectly tuned engine can bring. Stories like his spread fast through rider circles. Men who once blamed age or weather began booking appointments, chasing that same rebirth. Each remap turned doubt into vindication. It was not their imagination. It was not the years. It was a fixable flaw hiding in plain sight. And once word got around, dealers could not ignore it. Dealers catching on. At first, most dealerships dismissed the complaints. They blamed bad gas, heavy luggage, or lazy throttles. But as more riders brought in bikes for trade and service, patterns emerged. Mechanics began noticing identical symptoms: lean burns, inconsistent idle, and overheated exhausts on relatively new engines. Quietly, some service departments started adding ECU inspections to routine maintenance. They never called it fuel map correction. Too political, too close to admitting fault. Instead, they phrased it as software refresh or calibration update. But inside the shop, every technician knew what was really happening. Trade-ins began to tell the same story. Bikes with poor mapping performed worse on test rides, and that affected resale value. When a buyer takes a used Harley for a spin and it feels weak, the brand's reputation takes the hit, not the previous owner. Over time, the dealerships realized that underperforming bikes cost them money. Slower sales, longer inventory cycles, and skeptical customers. The financial incentive to fix the issue quietly outweighed the cost of pretending it did not exist. Some dealers even started partnering with independent tuners, allowing them to fine-tune customer bikes for a small premium. It was a subtle acknowledgement that the riders were right all along. A properly mapped engine not only made the owner happy, but also helped the dealership's bottom line. Word of mouth, goodwill returned, and with it, a sense that Harley's service departments were starting to listen again. But this problem cuts deeper than service bays. It reaches the core of Harley's image. Heritage on the line. For more than a century, Harley-Davidson has sold more than motorcycles. It has sold identity, torque, sound, and pride in craftsmanship. Riders believed in that promise because they could feel it in every mile. A Harley was supposed to breathe power, not bureaucracy. That is why this quiet mapping issue strikes such a nerve. It feels like a betrayal of heritage. When new bikes roll out underpowered or run lean to satisfy regulations, the legacy that built the brand begins to erode. The machines still look right, but the soul, that throaty, confident response, feels muted. Older riders remember when Harleys had quirks, but never lacked guts. The company's myth was built on torque you could count on, not computer code that second-guessed your right wrist. When riders discover their new machines are being limited by invisible numbers, it undercuts decades of loyalty. The frustration goes beyond performance. It touches pride. You can rebuild an engine, but it is harder to rebuild trust. That is why veteran riders have taken the lead in pushing back. Online forums, rally conversations, and garage gatherings all echo the same message. Harley's strength was never its technology. It was its honesty. Riders built that image one road at a time. And if the new generation of bikes forgets that, then it is up to the community to remind them what real Harley power feels like. And the fix will not come from Milwaukee alone. It starts in the garage. If you care about keeping your Harley running the way it was meant to, make sure you're subscribed. We bring real talk, real fixes, and no dealership spin, straight from the garage to your screen. Stay tuned and ride informed. Take back the wrench. Every generation of riders has faced a moment when they had to reclaim what made them fall in love with the machine. For this one, it starts with understanding the computer under the seat. The modern Harley may be built in factories, but its true home is still the garage. Checking your fuel map, running diagnostic scans, and getting a custom tune are not just mechanical chores. They are acts of ownership. The moment a rider understands what the bike is doing, he takes back control from the corporations that treat him like a passenger in his own machine. Small tuning shops are thriving again. Riders take pride in mastering performance, talking air-fuel ratios like their fathers did carburetors. It's not rebellion, it's honesty. Knowing how your machine breathes means knowing how it lives. And that's real rider freedom. Because this issue was never just about power or numbers, It was about respect. Respect for the craft, for the machine, and for the miles that connect them. That spirit still runs through every real Harley rider who refuses to accept good enough. The wrench, the tune, and the pride are all parts of the same tradition that built this community in the first place. Because what is happening in one garage is echoing across the whole industry. Industry ripple. Harley is not alone in this fight. Across the motorcycle world, every major manufacturer is wrestling with the same tightening vice: modern emissions standards that squeeze engines into compromise. Honda, Yamaha, and even BMW have seen their models run leaner than riders expect, often sacrificing throttle response for the sake of cleaner numbers on paper. The difference is that some of these competitors have invested heavily in calibration support, offering factory-backed tuning updates and adaptive fuel systems that automatically adjust for altitude, temperature, and rider style. They learned early that performance and compliance could coexist, if done carefully. Harley's classic V-twin, built for torque and soul, clashes with strict emissions limits. Its design leaves little tuning room, forcing conservative factory maps. Riders feel it instantly, while Japanese inline fours adapt quietly. A Harley's response turns muted, restrained, and less alive. This pattern is repeating across brands as the industry adapts to new rules. Smaller manufacturers outsource their ECU programming, while larger ones build in smart mapping designed to prevent tampering. But that very protection locks riders out from the machines they own. It is an ironic twist. The more advanced the technology gets, the less freedom the rider has to shape it. It is forcing everyone to rethink how machines and riders stay in sync. The mechanic shortage. In the old days, every town had a couple of mechanics who could rebuild a Harley blindfolded. They tuned by sound, smell, and feel. Craftsmen who lived inside the rhythm of combustion. But over the last decade, that generation has been retiring faster than new ones can take their place. The modern motorcycle technician faces a steeper climb. The job is no longer about wrenches alone. It demands laptops, diagnostics, software, and constant training. Many young mechanics simply do not stay long enough to master both the mechanical and digital sides of the trade. Dealers across the country are quietly struggling to keep up. A shortage of skilled techs means service departments are overbooked, parts sit waiting, and rushed jobs slip through the cracks. Misdiagnosed problems are becoming more common, especially in complex systems like fuel injection. A bike that needs a simple remap might get unnecessary part replacements instead. Riders end up paying for the learning curve, both in time and money. Independent shops are trying to fill the gap, but even they face challenges. Scarce parts, expensive diagnostic tools, and software locks that restrict access. Some tuners have to buy third-party equipment just to read Harley's ECUs, a cost many cannot afford to pass on. The result is a widening gulf between what riders expect and what service centers can realistically deliver. And when skill fades, reliability follows. Policy crossroads. Every rider wants power, but every government wants compliance. The Environmental Protection Agency, along with individual state regulators, continues to tighten its grip on how engines are tuned. Over the last few years, software locks and encrypted ECUs have made it nearly impossible for riders to adjust their own fuel maps without voiding warranties or breaking the law. Harley, like other manufacturers, is caught between loyalty to riders and legal obligation to regulators. The community is divided. Some support emission rules for cleaner air, while others demand the right to tune their own bikes. It's not rebellion, it's mechanical freedom. When factory limits hurt performance, the rider pays the price, not the corporation. There are glimmers of compromise. Certain states now allow certified tuning shops to make compliant adjustments within legal boundaries, balancing performance and emissions. But for most, the line remains tight. Riders know that crossing it could mean fines or loss of warranty. The frustration grows not from politics, but from the feeling of being locked out of your own machine. The question is not if riders will fight for control. It is when. keep it honest. Think back to that muted throttle, the one that started this whole story. That half-second delay between command and response was not just a mechanical flaw, it was a symbol. It represented how far modern riding had drifted from its roots. The bond between man and machine was always built on trust. You twist, it answers. When that trust falters, it shakes more than performance. It shakes identity. This problem is fixable. Riders are reclaiming the connection that built Harley's legacy, pride and craftsmanship. A proper tune restores the soul of your bike, turning every spark, rumble, and mile back into a true conversation between man and machine. The lesson reaches beyond engines. It reminds us that heritage survives only when riders stay vigilant. Machines will evolve, rules will tighten, and technology will grow more complex. But the rider's spirit, the will to understand, maintain, and master his own machine cannot be regulated. That is what keeps the culture alive. If this changed the way you look at your bike, hit that like button, because more riders need to see this. Drop a comment and tell me what your Harley feels like on the throttle, heat, or power loss. I read all of them. And if you want real fixes, no dealership filter, and honest breakdowns that actually help riders, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications.